win of the new WNBA season. The Sparks beat the Washington Mystics by 2 at the Pyramid at Long Beach State. Guard Lexi Brown led the Sparks with 20 points. Forward Dereka Hamby had a double-double with 17 points and a game-high 18 rebounds. Both of LA's Major League Baseball teams lost last night. The Angels fall by 1 at Houston. The Dodgers lost at home by 4 to Arizona. Mookie Betts was 0 for 3 on his bobblehead night. Interesting times for Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. Stafford participated in the Rams' first day of organized team practice activities despite his demands for more guaranteed money or an extension. Stafford signed a 4-year deal worth $160 million in 2022, but his contract is not guaranteed after the 2024 season. Keep your radar up to see how Stafford handles this situation. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, Tavis Smiley here. We're getting closer to June 18th and time is running out for you to register to join us for our historic symposium live on C-SPAN, Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com right now if you want to be in the audience when the nation will see for the first time ever a stage full of brilliant black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's all going down. Well, it's actually all going up. Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. live from the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Again, admission is free, but we're filling up fast. So if I were you, I would log on right now to KBLA1580.com to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. We're KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Outstanding. Girl, you knock me out. Exciting. You make me wanna shout.
Girl, you're looking sweet tonight. You find it every day, girl. Wish that I could love you right in a special way, girl. You light my fire. I feel alive with you. You blow my mind. I'm satisfied.
That's what I'm going for. I'm going for outstanding. Trying to do outstanding programming every day on this program. That's our goal, at least. I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm glad to have you tuned in to the Tavis Smiley program. And what a spirited first hour that was. I'm sorry for those of you who got your feelings hurt about the about Joe Biden's chances of winning. There's still time. I with all due respect to our guest, Christopher Sebastian Parker, he may be right about that. He's a noted pollster in this field with Black Insights Research. But his data, in case you've just tuned in, is that Joe Biden is going to lose this race. He's going to lose in part because his black numbers are just too soft. And there's nothing that he has done at this point or may be able to do between now and November to turn that tide. Because even if you don't vote for Donald Trump, he made it clear he doesn't buy the argument that 22+% of black people are going to vote for Donald Trump. His numbers at highest are 14%. But that's enough to cause you to lose, particularly in tight places like Wisconsin, Michigan, and beyond. So again, not welcome news per se, but the White House has to hear it. You can't stick your head in the sand about it. And so I'm honored to have had him on the program. I didn't know he was going to say that. So trust me, it shocked me too. But I'm just glad I didn't fall out of my chair live on the radio. So we'll talk to Christopher a few times. You heard him say, so Faraji, make a note of this. He said it. They're gonna as the polling they're doing is longitudinal. So they're going to talk to these same persons, 2,000 black people. That's a big sample. That's a big national sample. 2,000 black people. He made the point that one of the reasons why these articles keep being written that Biden, that Trump's going to win 25% of the black vote is because their sample sizes are so small and the data is off. They got a massive sample size. But I want to just make sure we put on our calendar, and we should check with him. I mean, they may be proprietary about when they're doing it, but once it's done, Faraji, we should find out and check in with him throughout the rest of the year between now and November to see if these black people are changing their minds every time they talk to them. And that will give this audience a really, really good heads up on how black folk are going to vote when we get to November. And that could be an exclusive for this program. I like that idea. That's a good idea. Go Tavis. You go Tavis. Anyway, we shall see about that in the days to come. In this hour, though, I'm pleased to welcome in studio prolific black showrunner and playwright Anthony Sparks to reflect on his career and the state of Hollywood for black artists today. And let me just start with this. In the last hour, Anthony, first of all, welcome. Yes. Good to see you, my friend.
Excellent. Thank
you. All right today?
Tavis. I was better before you just told us about what a crash course we're on, according to your last guest.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see.
But I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
No,
Tavis.
It's good to have you here, man. I'm thinking of Jesse Jackson now, and that line, his mantra, "Keep hope alive."
Yes,
that's what we got to do right about
that's
now.
That's right. This is gut check time.
Right. we got to keep hope alive. Speaking of Jesse also has said many, many times, I love this line. He says that black people have lost, in real time, lose too many elections by the simple margin of our absence at the polls. Mm. That's a great line from Jesse Jackson. Mm-hmm. Jesse got many great lines. Mm-hmm. But that we lose too many elections by the simple margin of our absence at the polls. And if he has felt that way about elections past, I would love to talk to Jesse. I'm going to be in Chicago. Of course, this summer we'll be broadcasting live from the Democratic Convention. So I'm sure I talk to him fairly regularly. I check in on him. And Parkinson's is starting to get more aggressive in his body. But his mind is still as sharp as ever. His presentation has slowed down. It's hard to hear him sometimes, hard to understand him. But his mind is as sharp as ever. And if you're patient enough, he'll get it out. And he's just as brilliant as he always has been. But I love that line, that we lose too many elections by the margin of our absence at the polls. And if Jesse's right about that, and he is, and Christopher is right about his polling, as he says he is, you put those two things together, it's problematic that Joe Biden may lose this because black people too many of us sit it out because there's no enthusiasm about getting up to go to the polls. I digress on that, but I mentioned in that last hour, Anthony, some news that broke, and we'll get your take on this to start, and then we'll jump from there. Okay. So the news came out a little bit ago that Amal Clooney, speaking of Hollywood, where you were, Amal Clooney, as we know, is a human rights lawyer, married, of course, to George. There was a big announcement last week that George Clooney, Barack Obama, Julia Roberts, Jimmy Kimmel, and a host of Hollywood stars are hosting a big fundraiser for Joe Biden here in Hollywood on June 15th. Okay. That news came out some days ago. But the news came out today that his wife, Amal Clooney, human rights lawyer, was involved in the decision by the ICC, the International Criminal Court, to seek those arrest warrants for Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, and, of course, the Hamas leaders. You know as well as I do, there's all kind of politics in this town. Right. But George Clooney is about to raise money for the president. Yes. Who has said on the record yesterday that what's happening in Gaza is not genocide. That's what he said. It ain't genocide. And the ICC is wrong. It's outrageous to issue an arrest warrant for Bibi Netanyahu. It's a false equivalency between Israel and Hamas. But George is raising money for him while his wife was involved in the decision. Yes. You see my point. Yes. We'll pause on that for just a moment. I've got a number of questions I want to ask Anthony about that and the way politics in this town works, and we'll jump from there. I guess it's Anthony Sparks. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Hey y'all, Mona Swain here from Target's new YouTube series, My Cart is Full, where we feature black founders and creators highlighting their connection to our community. As an actor and content creator, I love using my voice to inspire young black women who look like me. When it comes to feeding my shine, seeing myself reflected in black-owned and founded products at Target brings me joy. Together, we are Black Beyond Measure. Learn more at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler. I'm Cookie Serratos, and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze fruit-on-the-go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per serving.
Every day, millions face challenges that go unseen. Mental health issues affect not just individuals, but the relationships that matter most to them. Over 80% of those suffering with mental health conditions acknowledge the strain on their families. Parents grappling with depression or anxiety find even simple tasks overwhelming. At work, challenges can lead to communication breakdowns, jeopardizing careers and professional relationships. For those caring for loved ones, burnout is a stark reality. The weight of caregiving responsibilities can feel insurmountable. Children, too, feel this impact, often taking on more at home, sacrificing schoolwork and time with friends. But there's hope. Seeking support can change lives. This Mental Health Awareness Month, let's heal the relationships that matter most to us. It's okay to pray and get help. Visit normalizehelp.org for more information and resources.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Anthony Sparks, who is a prolific showrunner in Hollywood, the town where I sit right now. We're heard across the country, but I'm pleased to be emanating live every day from Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California. And Anthony joins me live in studio now to talk about his career and more broadly about the state of Hollywood for black artists today. And so I was trying to link what we were talking about last hour, Anthony, about George and Amal Clooney. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to pivot here to how they do politics in Hollywood, the good white folk.
Right.
And the way that black people do or don't do politics in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because we're all subjected to it.
Yes.
And I was saying to you while we were about to come back on the air, we shall see in the days ahead if Hollywood does to George Clooney what they did to one Paul Robeson. Just pause for a second and take that in.
Yes.
We're going to see if that same Hollywood does to George Clooney what they did to Paul Robeson.
Right.
I have a very, very, very smart audience. They get it.
Yes.
They ran Paul Robeson out of town. Literally ran him out of town.
Yes.
George Clooney's wife was involved in the decision to seek these arrest warrants in the ICC, International Criminal Court, for Bibi Netanyahu, other Israeli leaders, and Hamas leaders. And she doubled down on it with some strong comments today that I read in the last hour. She ain't backing up on it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Meanwhile, her husband is Mr. Hollywood.
Yes.
And is raising money for the president on June 15th.
Right.
That might be enough to insulate him, but that's still your wife.
Yes.
And so it's tricky here. So again, I repeat, we will see if they do to George Clooney what they did to Paul Robeson. That's my commentary. Now, to you.
Yes.
My point is, if George Clooney and Amal Clooney can get away with this thing.
Yes.
You and I both know that if George Clooney were black,
radio show be over.
There you go. If George Clooney were black and his wife had done what Amal Clooney has done,
yes,
they'd run that Negro out of town like Paul Robeson.
Right.
So we shall see how George Clooney gets treated in the days ahead. I digress on that for now. My question with all that said is that the politics that black folk have to navigate,
Yes.
literally their politics,
Yes.
and deciding to speak out or to remain quiet.
Mm-hmm.
The politics of getting a show greenlit.
Yes.
The politics of et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me then about how black people navigate that broad political journey,
Mm-hmm.
trying to just express themselves artistically.
Thank you for that question and for the acknowledgement that it's more than an ocean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually at a place right now in my career, having ascended to being someone who can be placed in charge of a show, of recognizing that it isn't always just about my work. And that there is a level of politics, some of which I have access to knowledge about, and much of which I do not have access to knowledge about, that play a role in who gets a green light and who doesn't, who gets a shot, who gets an overall deal, who doesn't, things like that. If I had the answers to exactly how you could navigate that, I could write a book and retire. Okay, but it keeps changing and shifting. Black folk and black artists have always had to be good at what they do, and then smart about how they do it. And that way you never stop learning. And I'm in that same boat right now as I'm in the hunt, the race to, get shows on the air now versus just running other people's shows, which is an achievement within itself, by the way. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm firmly engaged in developing 3, 4, or 5 different shows, those politics are real. The freedom with which, you were alluding, say, the Clooneys could move is not something that would ever occur to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just gave a speech 2 weeks ago at USC in the School of Dramatic Arts, their commencement speech. Mm-hmm. My wife is in
they let you in.
They gave me the mic.
You gave your speech.
They gave me. They let me in.
Everybody else got canceled, as we all know.
I know. It was a little difficult getting on campus, but I did. And that's also, I graduated from the USC School of Dramatic Arts. Mm-hmm. And my household we just happen to be blessed to be very much. My wife is an associate dean at the USC School of Dramatic Arts.
That helps.
Yes, yeah. But it also put pressure on me in terms of talking about the freedom with which you move. Mm-hmm. I can't go in there and just start popping off at the mouth and saying any and everything. Mm-hmm. My wife has to go to work on Monday. Mm-hmm. And so we as Black people, I think, have always moved with an awareness that we've got to be as smart as we know how to be in that moment, while also being authentic to what we believe in as much as we can. That doesn't mean that you get to say everything that you want to say at all times in every platform. But I have found that I have managed to stay in this business now 21 years as a TV writer, producer, and now showrunner, 30 years totally in terms of being in arts and entertainment. And there were times where I had to be a little bit more, use more subterfuge about what I was really about. I do less of that today because I'm a little bit older. The cultural conversation has changed a little bit. But I wouldn't say any of us move with 100% freedom. No.
I appreciate that candor and that honesty. Miles, is he out of your shot? Is he good? Okay, they would give me instructions.
Okay.
To move to your left just a little bit. There you go.
Okay, excellent.
They want to make sure your handsome visage can be seen, and stay on that microphone there.
Yes, got it.
All right. Sorry y'all hearing all this, but I want to just make sure that if you're listening in New York or Chicago or New Orleans, wherever you're listening, that you can actually hear Anthony Sparks and see him as well, for those of you who are watching. That said, back to this notion of freedom.
Yes.
I was saying I appreciate, first of all, your candor and your transparency, your honesty about the fact, your veracity about the fact that you don't move with complete and total freedom.
No.
I've said many times that it really ain't but two kinds of people, particularly Black people. My view is either you're running scared or you're running free. Ain't but two kinds of Black people. Either you're running scared or you're running free. And yet every time I say that, I think about my friends in Hollywood, who, as you said earlier, have to be both good at what they do, whereas our parents and grandparents told us twice as good, and work twice as hard. We all know that.
Yes.
So you got to be all that, and then you have to be at a minimum, and then to your point, be smart about how you move.
Yes.
About how you speak, about how you express yourself. Again, back to the Clooneys, they can do whatever they want to do. We're going to see what happens to George Clooney, if anything. But Amal Clooney did not back down.
No.
And I'd be fascinated to be a fly on the wall inside their house when that decision was made, that she was going to be involved in this situation.
Yes.
I don't know that at the outset, when she agreed to be involved, that they knew they would conclude that there was, in fact, sufficient evidence to seek these arrest warrants. But George had to know that Amal was stepping into the role of being a part of the team at the ICC making this decision. But again, it didn't stop them from making the decision that she would, in fact, do that.
Right.
And it ain't stopping George from raising money for the president, apparently on June the 15th. We shall see if he shows up. I suspect he will. And we'll see how Hollywood treats him or maltreats him. But I take your point that you and your wife, as you laid out beautifully, I saw what you did there. I saw what you did there. You and your wife have a very different dialectic than George and Amal Clooney have making their decisions.
Yes.
I take your point. Because she got to go back to USC after you speak.
Exactly.
And you still trying to get shows on the air in Hollywood.
Exactly.
So I understand those points exactly. Here's my issue though. I think I'm pressing toward this notion of freedom.
Yes.
There's so many definitions of freedom. Everybody has their own. Mine is simply this: freedom, by any other definition, is the agency at any and all times to speak your truth. The agency at any and all times to speak your truth. You see where I'm going here now?
Yes.
If you acknowledge to me that you can't move with absolute freedom in this town, in this business, what does that say about your freedom or your definition of freedom just as a human being, as a black man? I'm not saying the two things can't coexist, but you take my point, though.
I do take your point.
Yeah.
I do take your point. I think one of the saddest.
There you go.
This is my personal opinion. I think one of the saddest things that I see too much of are black people in Hollywood or in other aspects of entertainment who have made it, who, when you get close to them, you see they're actually running more scared than free.
You see the strings behind them.
You do. You see them starting to, and you don't know if those strings are self-censored or if there is someone that
pulling them,
is pulling them. And it gets to the point where you then go, well, then what is the success and the money for? And are you working? Do you work? Who owns you? Like, do you own your money or does your money own you? It has always been my hope that there would come a point in my own level of success where I go, okay, the bills are paid. Okay, the college tuition is paid. Can I use my success to be more free in my work primarily? That to me is where it's most important. That to me is where it's most important to maintain your ability to say something in your work and move in such a way that you realize you're not the first person on the scene and you hopefully won't be the last. So when I say move with complete freedom, I mean, remember that you want some sort of infrastructure here left when you retire or you decide that you're done with arts and entertainment or Hollywood, for that next person to come along and move even more free. That is the goal, I think. And that may mean that you have to understand that you can't get it done all on your own. I don't think any of us can. But I do think that when you get to a certain point, you have to do a gut check with yourself and go, is the goal to just amass more and more and more and more and more and more and more? If you get more and more and more and more and you can't say anything that's worth a damn, what was it for? I do believe that. Now, that might be the Chicago, Mississippi in me.
But that's that South Side.
But that's where
Chicago South Side.
That's where I am.
I'm thinking of LBJ as you're talking. LBJ said the same thing when he became president. He was pushing hard, as we all know, to get voting rights passed and civil rights passed. And whatever you think of LBJ, he was wrong on Vietnam. We all know that. But when it comes to black people, the most seminal legislation in this country ever passed was passed in part by LBJ. He twisted a whole lot of arms, as you know, to get that legislation passed. Those Southern Dixiecrat senators. He had served, of course, in the Senate from Texas. but he was twisting arms of those senators to get that legislation passed, voting rights and civil rights. We were just talking in the last hour about how Joe Biden failed in getting voting rights reauthorized and passed permanently, as it were, in this first term, and he may pay for that. He didn't get police reform passed. He didn't get voting rights passed, and that may be what's softening and tempering the support, the enthusiasm for him amongst black people more broadly. We shall see again if Christopher was right about that, who we talked to in our first hour. But the point is, LBJ said the same thing when asked why you're pressing so hard on this. You know, these Negroes will be all right. Why are you pressing so hard on this? He said, if the presidency is not for getting something done, then what the heck is the point?
Right.
I cleaned that up. LBJ had a little.
Yes.
Was a potty
yes.
mouth.
He had a salty mouth, as we know.
Salty mouth. Yeah.
Yes.
He said, but what is the presidency for if it ain't to do something, to get something done? And I always respected LBJ for that. I want to talk. We've been talking about freedom here. I want to talk about creative freedom.
Sure.
Creative freedom and how free, how liberated you are. You think creatively in this town. And here's the way I want to get at it. I read an article not long ago in the LA Times, and it was an article that had this headline on it: American Fiction's Oscar shows that not all movies by black directors need to be about violence and poverty.
Yes.
American Fiction's Oscar shows that not all movies by black directors need to be about violence and poverty. You want to read this article written by a sister named Carla Hall, editorial writer for the LA Times. Carla Hall, brilliant commentary here. And there's a big picture here of Cord Jefferson holding his Oscar for adapted screenplay for the film American Fiction.
Yes.
And again, her point was that Oscar win. And if you saw American Fiction, you understand it wasn't about violence, it wasn't about poverty. Brilliant piece of work.
Yes.
And just an amazing cast. Jeffrey Wright, everybody.
Sterling Brown.
Sterling Brown.
Yes.
Issa Rae. Everybody. Sister from Living Single. I'm blanking on her name right now.
Erica
Alexander.
Yes.
Just an amazing cast. But I read this piece and it got my attention because I hadn't really thought about it in that way. But it does, in fact, I think Carla Hall is right. It does, in fact, show that every movie made by us and for us doesn't have to be about violence and poverty. But that seems to me to take us down a road of having a conversation with a showrunner like yourself about creative freedom.
Yes.
So when we come forward with our guest in this hour, Anthony Sparks, prolific black showrunner and playwright. We ain't got into his stuff yet. We'll get into that. I promise. That's why we do these things for an hour, right?
That's
right. Time.
We got a lot of right.
We got time to cover a lot of ground.
Yes.
But the ground we're going to cover initially when we come forward is this notion of how free black people are creatively, or whether we're going to keep seeing the same stuff that we've been seeing.
Right.
Because y'all niggas ain't really free. I digress. My name is Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Louisiana House has passed a bill that would classify abortion pills as a controlled dangerous substance. The bill that was approved on Tuesday would make possession of the pills without a prescription a crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison. It's already illegal to prescribe the pills to terminate a pregnancy in Louisiana. The bill now goes to the state Senate. In Georgia, Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis is the winner of her Democratic primary. The African-American DA is handling the election interference case against former President Donald Trump. The judge overseeing the Trump case, Scott McAfee, is also projected to win his race. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is also running for re-election but faced no GOP opposition in the primary. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Every business faces challenges, but shipping shouldn't be one of them. Turn shipping to your advantage with USPS Ground Advantage from the United States Postal Service. Learn how at USPS.com/advantage. USPS Ground Advantage. Simple, affordable, reliable.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Congratulations to the LA Sparks. They got their first win of the new WNBA season. The Sparks beat the Washington Mystics by 2 at the Pyramid at Long Beach State. Guard Lexi Brown led the Sparks with 20 points. Forward Derica Hamby had a double-double with 17 points and a game-high 18 rebounds. Both of LA's Major League Baseball teams lost last night. The Angels fall by 1 at Houston. The Dodgers lost at home by 4 to Arizona. Mookie Betts was 0 for 3 on his bobblehead night. Interesting times for Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. Stafford participated in the Rams' first day of organized team practice activities despite his demands for more guaranteed money or an extension. Stafford signed a 4-year deal worth $160 million in 2022, but his contract is not guaranteed after the 2024 season. Keep your radar up to see how Stafford handles this situation. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Have you been a victim or witness to hate or discrimination? Contact the California vs. Hate hotline to report the incident by calling 833-8-NO-HATE or visit cavshate.org. They'll help you access resources and support, including legal, financial, mental health, and mediation services. California vs. Hate is not affiliated with the police, and you can report anonymously. Use your voice. Report hate by calling 833-8-NO-HATE or visit cavshate.org. Res Radio 91.3.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and prolific black showrunner and playwright Anthony Sparks is our guest, who's live in studio. We've been having a pretty amazing conversation. I hope you agree with me about black folk in Hollywood and their freedom or lack thereof. In case you just tuned in, we were talking about Amal Clooney and George Clooney. Everybody knows Georgia Amal Clooney. She is a noted and famed human rights lawyer, and we now know, and she's on the record doubling down on it. She was involved on the team to help make the decision at the International Criminal Court to go after those, to seek those arrest warrants for Bibi Netanyahu and other Israeli military leaders and Hamas leaders, and she was involved in that process as a human rights lawyer. President Biden immediately responded by saying that decision was outrageous. He decried the fact that the decision seems to suggest that there's an equivalency, which he called a false equivalency between Israel and Hamas. So that's getting funky. It's getting real funky over there at the ICC. Meanwhile, the husband of Amal Clooney, George Clooney, is set to host a fundraiser for Joe Biden June 15th here in Hollywood. And we've been talking about a number of things, not the least of which is that the good white folk have a freedom. They got a freedom that Negroes just don't have to move and do things that otherwise seem completely disparate, right?
Right.
And I said to Anthony, he agreed that if George Clooney were black and his wife had been involved in seeking an arrest warrant for Bibi Netanyahu right about now, they'd run him out of Hollywood just like they did one Paul Robeson. So we've been having a spirited conversation about the notion of freedom for black artists, for black creatives in this business today. And I was saying to you before we stepped aside, there's this conversation to be had that I want to have now about black creative freedom. Mm-hmm. And I referenced this article that I read recently in the LA Times by Carla Hall. Her headline was, "American Fiction's Oscar shows that not all movies by black directors need to be about violence and poverty." And it reminded me that I was going to be talking to you today.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, as I will now, about black creative freedom. Mm-hmm. The mic is yours.
It's a constant battle, right? And there's a long history to it. And honestly, my move into television, I began as an actor, primarily a stage actor. And my move into television was, believe it or not, some people in Hollywood will laugh, but was actually me seeking more creative freedom. Mm. The reason I was seeking more creative freedom was because as an actor, a young black actor in the late 90s and early aughts, I was running into the constraints of how the industry, and therefore, in my opinion, the world, saw young black men. Mm-hmm. And I did not fit what they thought of us. I was literally told I did not exist. Meaning the guy who looks and walks and talks like me from the south side of Chicago, vis-a-vis Mississippi. Mm-hmm. The reason I then moved into television, I'd always been a writer, was because I said, I'm entering into this conversation creatively as an actor way too late. Mm-hmm. By the time you get to an audition, the framework has been formed. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that actors don't have agency. Mm-hmm. They do. But it is a constrained and contained agency, I would argue, by the time you're auditioning for a role. So I said, I got to get into the creation of this. I got to step off the stage. Mm-hmm. So my stepping off the stage was a practical decision in terms of seeking more work, but it was also my form of an intervention to attempt to make an intervention earlier into the creative conversation, seeking creative freedom, as we're talking about. Now, television is a huge apparatus. There are lots of checks and balances and controls. So obviously there is no pure creative freedom in something that is fundamentally a collaborative medium. But for me at the time, it was relative. Be an actor who's going to audition and take whatever they give me, or get to participate in the conversation about what those pages, those scripts, those stories that we're telling are going to be to begin with. So to Cord Jefferson's film, which is, as Carla Hall wrote about, sort of pushing the boundaries of what can be a black story. It doesn't have to be drenched and soaked in violence and poverty.
Yeah.
I applaud that. We know that. Look, I worked on Queen Sugar for 6 years. If there was anything radical about Queen Sugar, it was that they were everyday stories about a black family just trying to get along with each other, survive, run their business, and just sort of their pursuit of the black American dream. It was very quietly, I think, in that way, doing very important work. And that's why I stayed with that show for so long, actually, because TV writers tend to move around a lot. But I recognized fairly early on that we had an opportunity to tell a story that said that everyday black folk and their stories and their lives are epic and important.
Does that responsibility ever feel more like a burden? And I ask that because the good white folk in the writer's room, I don't think come to their jobs feeling a responsibility, which again, over a period of time, can start to feel like a burden.
Yeah.
They just have the freedom to be creative.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. There are certainly people who would say that. I'm not one of them, because I consider it a privilege to be able to tell our stories on a mass media level. And yes, responsibility and burden to me don't have to mean the same thing. They can. Yes, they do. You know, my white brothers and sisters, they do. They have a freedom that they come in and they can do and say whatever they want, and they don't have to think about how this is going to reverberate in the larger culture most of the time. No, I don't have that freedom, but I've made my peace with that, because I think that our culture is important enough, deep enough, complex enough that we can take responsibility for what we're putting out there and still be really damn good at telling great stories.
So then tell me earnestly and honestly, not that you wouldn't, what you have not made peace with. I respect the fact you've made peace with that part. But it's a struggle every day.
Yes.
So what have you not made peace with? What are you not willing to bow excuse me. What are you not willing to bow down to? You're still troubled by fill in the blank.
What am I willing to not bow down to? A lot, I hope.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But I figure if you've made peace with that, there must be some other things that you ain't made peace with. And you're going to fight it.
As I like to say, I'm trying to get into the Negro artist section of heaven.
There you go.
Okay. And when I show up, they're going to ask me, what did I do with my opportunities, my education, all of those things that not everybody is blessed to have. And my answer cannot be, I bought some really awesome shoes, you know? So that sort of gets back to at what point, when we were talking earlier, at what point do you go, I have enough that I can speak a little louder, a little bolder, and let the chips fall where they may. Of course, that is a different sort of answer depending on who you're talking to. And I can't make that decision for them, and they can't make it for me. But I do think you got to be engaged in that question as you, quote unquote, ascend up the ladder of success. I don't want, my mother, God bless her soul, I always wanted to be able to look her in the face about what I was doing and not be ashamed of that. That's, for me, a gut check question. That is, frankly, one of the reasons I stepped off the stage, because there were things that I was being asked to audition for or being limited to that I was like, this represents the exact opposite of everything that I was raised to be. And I could use the excuse of, oh, it's just the character. But I'm not going to do that my entire life, you know? So
we were talking a moment ago about the role of black creatives, the responsibility, and whether or not they truly have creative freedom in this town. I shout out Carla Hall for a brilliant piece that she wrote that made me think about, what we are capable of in terms of putting stuff on the table for them to green light that isn't necessarily about violence, poverty, the same sort of storyline. Let me shout out another writer named Corey Emanuel. Corey wrote a piece that I read in preparation for our conversation that I want to get you to comment on. Let me just tee it up right now. The headline is Black Hollywood's Role in Keeping the Industry White. Y'all missed that. Y'all missed that. Black Hollywood's role. Black Hollywood's role in keeping the industry white. There can be no other outcome if the few executives who are of color are unwilling to empower and uplift other members of their community. Ouch. We'll talk about that part when we come forward.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California. Home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Aviterus, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising at KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your Black.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had Leaf Filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley and Anthony Sparks, noted Hollywood showrunner, playwright, just a brilliant creative in his own right, but is in this studio today having a really, really honest and transparent conversation with me, which I appreciate. You don't always get that from black folk in Hollywood who are afraid just to have a conversation. They're like, nah, turn these mics off, Negro, then I'll talk to you.
Right.
So it's rare to get somebody who will speak this transparently about a business that is difficult for black people to navigate, and I'm sensitive to that. I understand that. I was saying, watching my time right there, I was saying a moment ago, this piece got my attention about the role that black Hollywood plays in keeping the industry white, because these few black people that get these positions know that they're being watched and they're being judged themselves, and they ain't trying to be but so black. I digress. Your thoughts?
I mean, it's the old question about, are you going to be an advocate or are you going to be a gatekeeper? Right? And
he dropping them sparks again. Anthony Sparks lighting it up again. Go ahead.
And and I think every black executive and black creative has to figure out what those boundaries are for themselves. I'm always humble enough to understand that my position and disposition may not be theirs, and that what's going on what I call the other side of the table, behind the closed doors, I don't really know what that is. So, God help us all, we have to trust that person is at least engaged within themselves in the question of, how can I advocate, as opposed to gatekeep. Now, there are some people out here, I got to give it up, who quietly or not so quietly, they are fighting that battle.
I'm sure.
They are. And we don't always see that. So got to acknowledge that. Yeah. But I do think you have to be careful about being seduced into, let me put it this way. Outside of my kids' tuitions, the Sparks overhead stays low. Okay.
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Because there's a little bit of freedom in that. I'm 19 years in the same house. I feel the pressure to flossy floss, right? Why not? Who doesn't want to live well? And I do live well. So let me be very clear about that. Very blessed in that way. But I want to be sure that I can, for example, I was in a situation once where I was being called stupid in a writer's room.
Hold that thought. Miles, get me back as fast as you can.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom. If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA Can also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007 they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA Can believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
I got 4 minutes left, Anthony Sparks. We'll use it how you want to use it, but first, finish telling that story.
Yeah, so I was in a situation once where I had a senior producer. This was before I became a co-EP and an EP and a showrunner. Was referring to me and my work publicly in the writer's room in front of the other writers as stupid. And so you talk about, well, what are you not willing to lay down for? Well, that would be one of those moments. Okay.
I imagine so.
You know, and it was more than once. And about the second time, I said, you know what? It ain't gonna be but too many more stupids up in here.
Did the sparks fly?
The sparks flew, but I knew that there was a risk in that. And so, with the door open, we had a heated conversation about how this was going to stop. And it probably didn't make me look good. It certainly didn't make her look good. She was doing it, you know. And I eventually had to leave that job. It was a toxic environment. It hurt, but I had to be okay with that. You know, my mother, you know, at that time, I told her what happened, and she was like, sometimes you got to take one for the team. You know, and I think that is something that all of us who work in Black Hollywood and are seeking a certain level of creative freedom and individual success have to understand that our individual success comes on top of a lot of people who sacrificed a lot. And at some point, you have to say what you will do and won't do.
I love your Twitter or X handle. Father, husband, writer, artist, scholar, professor, Pearl's son.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
Pearl's son.
Pearl's son, that's right. And that's what I think about a lot, you know. I also have a gut check question sometimes, which is, would 17-year-old Anthony think that 50-year-old Anthony is a jerk? Meaning that kid who had stars and dreams in his eyes and thought that the world was just maybe going to be wide open. And then you go into the world having done everything that you said you were going to, you know, needed to do, and you find out that there are people who are trying to place incredible restrictions on you based on something as silly as the color of your skin. Be sure you honor the future 17-year-old Anthony in the decisions that you make. I try to do what I do with that at the forefront of my mind.
Okay, you're getting too deep now. You got to get out of here. You submerging so deep now, I can't keep up. I've got 45 seconds left, and this is my way of saying, this is my thing, not your thing. I got 45 seconds left. You can brag. I want you to brag about anything you're working on. I got 45 seconds. Tell what you're doing. Tell me something, man.
I am deeply, deeply engaged. For the first time in my life, I am doing what's called full-time development. I am working with Legendary Studios, 2 projects at Lionsgate, 1 project at Netflix. And I am building Creative Sparks Media.
I love it. Creative Sparks Media. Pearl is smiling.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Miss Pearl.
Thank you.
Miss Pearl is happy. We always want to make our mamas proud anyway, don't we?
Don't we?
We just want to make our mamas smile.
Don't we?
Yeah, you doing that, brother.
Oh, thank you.
Anthony, I've enjoyed this immensely. I never know where these conversations are going to go, and you played along with all the breaking news, and we weaved this thing together, and it turned out to be a pretty good hour.
Well, thank you so much. A pleasure to have you anytime.
We'll do it again, my friend.
Thank you.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The local American DA is handling the election interference case against former President Donald Trump. The judge overseeing the Trump case, Scott McAfee,